Here are the top stories for today, June 24, 2022. President Rodrigo Duterte orders all government agencies to support the government's financial inclusion strategy aimed at supporting efforts towards economic development. What do Filipinos expect from President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos as Agriculture Chief? We'll listen to their thoughts on what must be done to ensure food security amid various risks. Standing firm, the DFA says oil exploration talks between the Philippines and China have been terminated, stressing the Constitution must be upheld in dealing with the matter. And the people and streets of San Juan go wet and wild again as the Wattah Festival is back after a 2-year halt due to the pandemic. The government wants all Filipinos to enjoy a stable and comfortable lifestyle by 2040. This means Filipinos should have enough money for their daily needs and unexpected expenses, can plan and prepare for their family's future, have freedom to go anywhere they decide, be protected by clean environment and fair government. To achieve this ambition, President Rodrigo Duterte signed Memorandum Circular Number 97 institutionalizing a whole-of-government support for the National Strategy for Financial Inclusion or NSFI. Financial inclusion is a state in which everyone, especially the vulnerable sectors, has effective access to a wide range of financial services. Under the memorandum, all departments, agencies, and instrumentalities of the government shall incorporate relevant priority initiatives in their respective programs, policies, and budgets. They are also directed to participate in working groups created by the Financial Inclusion Steering Committee for monitoring and evaluation of its implementation. All regional development councils and equivalent bodies are enjoined to adopt financial inclusion as a development agenda. Amid quickening inflation, Filipinos can't help but hope that prices of commodities stay affordable. All the more as President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. vowed to address the looming food crisis as incoming Agriculture Secretary. Stephanie Sevillano reports.
66-year-old vendor Marian Puso has been having a hard time gaining back her 2,000 peso worth of capital as vegetable prices continue to hike. She usually buys her products along the Visoria for reselling. However, she said consumers are now doing their best to make ends meet. And as President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. vowed to lead the Agriculture Department, Puso can't help but share her hopes.
Matumal kami, naapektuhan kami kasi matumal. Ang tao, naghahanap ng mura. Di siyempre, kailangan magbabudget. O kami nangungutang kung minsan pagkulang sa gusto ko lang sana maging mabait sila, tapos maging maano sila sa mga mahihirap.
Likewise, 70-year-old grandmother Angelina Roman, who still works for their home carinderia, noted it's difficult to even secure 1,000 peso profit. With these challenges, Roman wishes Marcos will be able to cause a price drop for basic goods.
Naman natin masisisi siya na ganito ganyan. Sana medyo babaan na ng konting bilhin, lalo na ako. May mga apo kong pinakakain. Number 1, yung gas.
Meanwhile, outgoing Agriculture Secretary William Dodd commended the political will Marcos has been showing. However, he said it is significant to put a premium on key areas including increasing local production, food terminal systems, increasing rice buffer stocks, and other medium to long-term plans, among others. Marcos earlier said he will ensure agricultural actions to resolve the looming effects of the global food crisis. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Stephanie Sevillano.
Oil exploration talks between the Philippines and China have come to a halt. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said Manila initiated the move to avoid a constitutional crisis. Speaking at the agency's founding anniversary, Locsin said both sides tried to negotiate for 3 years and got as far as constitutionally possible. However, another step forward would have risked a constitutional crisis. Throughout the 3-year talks, Locsin said the Philippines never surrendered even a particle of its sovereignty. He said the incoming administration is expected to continue the task of protecting the country's sovereignty all the way to the wire. Surigao del Sur Representative Johnny Pimentel said Congress would not fund the propounded oil importation agreement as the government is not in the business of importing and refining crude oil into finished petroleum products. Pimentel, who is the current chair of the House Strategic Intelligence Committee, said they ruled out the government-to-government purchase of cheap crude oil from Russia because the government does not own a refinery. He said the storage alone will cost the government more money. If the government wants to pursue the oil supply deal, Pimentel said it should include Petron Corporation in the discussion, considering the crude oil's compatibility in the company's refinery. Camarines Sur Representative Luis Raymond Villafuerte, meanwhile, proposed to the incoming administration to consider putting up a national strategic petroleum reserve to stabilize the retail cost of petroleum products. The Energy Department is planning to ask the 19th Congress to prioritize a review of the oil deregulation law to ease petroleum prices. Protesters are advised to cancel their activities on June 30, the inauguration day of President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. at the National Museum in Manila. The Manila Police District said those who will insist may do so in the city's freedom parks and not anywhere near the inauguration venue. MPD spokesperson Major Philip Ines reminded protesters that Manila has a no permit, no rally ordinance, and the Batas Pambansa 880 or the Public Assembly Act of 1985, which states that demonstrators may only gather without permits at government-designated freedom parks. The MPD is set to deploy over 4,000 police officers during the event. As the country tries to return to normalcy amid the pandemic, festivities are also slowly making a comeback. The city of Manila is not an exception as it marks its 451st founding anniversary. Manileños revved up the celebration, which featured the plant nilad from which the city derived its name. The city government held several activities with the Grand Float Festival and the street dance competition at the Kartilya ng Katipunan, highlighting the occasion. The city's Tourism, Culture and Arts Department says nilad is a cultural icon and a representation of its journey and history, and a budding plant trying to trace and find its origin so it can once again bloom and be visible not only to the country but also to the rest of the world. Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Domagoso said the nilad is not simply a plant that the city is trying to revive, but the totality of all the stories of the city worth sharing and experiencing. Still ahead, it's wet and wild again in San Juan as residents. We take a look at the Wattah revelries in honor of their patron saint. And it's all is well that ends well for the national government and the province of Cebu over the enforcement of the mask mandate. We'll be back after a quick break. Keep it here on the PNA Newsroom.
Pakiramdam ay hindi maganda. Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
We go east of Metro Manila, where people are drenched with the celebration of the Wattah Festival in San Juan. But the local government reminds splashes must be done with care and health rules must be followed. Stephanie Sevillano joins the Wet and Wild festivity and filed this report.
Kids clad in colorful costumes, commuters drenched in water splashes along the streets, fire trucks in places to wet the road, and motorists. After a 2-year hiatus due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the much-awaited return of the Wattah Festival in San Juan City has finally come to fruition. Agala Group member Peter Glenn Abilon said the youth and other residents desire to bring back the spirit of the event upon the very entry into their city.
Ang maganda kasi dito, yung nasa boundary kami from Quezon City, papasok sa San Juan. So dito kami sa Arco mismo. So very exciting na dito nag-umpisa ang basaan. So kaya masasaya mga tao dito.
Even random commuters passing along N. Domingo Street, Barangay Ermitaño were not spared from the lively street splash.
After around 2 years of halt, most of the residents here in San Juan are very much delighted they are once again allowed to celebrate the feast of John the Baptist.
One of them is 20-year-old student Adele Valiente, who expressed her joy as they resumed their classic commemoration.
Sabik na sabik po kami ulit ngayon magfesta, kaya sobrang saya po namin ngayon kahit wala ng tubig.
Another resident meanwhile said they were carefully instructed to observe the minimum health protocols. Hence, the making of his personalized face masks with the intent to send a message.
My own creation, COVID away, kaya cross. Kasi, di ba, San Juan Bautista is water. Yun yung ano niya, yun yung parang logic niya, tubig. Kaya talagang baptism of Jesus Christ.
Amid the celebration, some individuals acting in charge assured they will assure no violations will be made.
Ang rule naman dito, sabi ni Mayor, magsuot ng mga face mask. Yung iba naman, sumusunod. Yung iba, wala, basa na, tinanggal na eh. Pero ang more kasi kami sa maintenance ng peace. O kaya may nagbabiolate, maduming tubig, mga ganon.
With all the policies set, San Juan City Mayor Francis Zamora personally joined the festival. He earlier led the event during the morning as he reminded the residents of the minimum health protocols as they share another grateful year. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Stephanie Sevillano.
The national government and the Cebu provincial government have ended the apparent rift over the enforcement of the mask mandate. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año said he and Cebu Governor Gwen Garcia agreed to compromise regarding the province's ordinance that made masks optional in outdoor and well-ventilated areas. Cebu is currently crafting its implementing rules and regulations, or IRR, to rationalize the measure. The DILG is now awaiting the IRR before giving further guidance. Anyo earlier said the ordinance passed by the Cebu Provincial Board cannot supersede the order of President Rodrigo Duterte on face mask use. He also emphasized that the country is still under a state of public health emergency and a state of calamity until September 12, 2022. Qualified government employees have availed of quality, low-cost housing in Davao City. Located in Cadayawan Homes, Bangkal, Davao City, the Madaya Residences is a first low-rise government-constructed residential building outside Metro Manila. NHA General Manager Marcelino Escalada Jr. said all disposed units are duplex type with a monthly amortization of 5,000 pesos for the first year for a maximum of 30 years. President Rodrigo Duterte led the awarding of 640 housing units, saying this is one way of giving back to the uniformed personnel and public servants. He congratulated the National Housing Authority for completing the project despite the challenges faced during the COVID-19.
The low-cost housing program is our way of giving back to the country's hardworking, uniformed personnel and civil servants. Big kong sabihin, bumabawi lang rin ang gobyerno sa sakripisyo ninyo. Kaya ako alam ko, kasi matagal akong mayor, 23 years, so nakapa ko na lahat ng sektor na nakapa ko na. And these are the things that we would like to continue, sana, but kaya hindi ko na panahon. So I hope that the program, nandito na si Senator dalawa, sana sila nga ang nag-udyok sa administrasyon na hindi kalimutan yung mga proyekto na umpisan na napakaganda.
President Rodrigo Duterte assures police and military officials and officers facing charges that he will still continue to protect them even after he steps down from office on June 30. Duterte, who is a lawyer and a former prosecutor, said he could provide free legal help if they were falsely accused of committing abuses while in the performance of their duties. He said he is confident he would be able to justify their actions, especially if it has something to do with arresting or fighting it out with the criminals and the New People's Army. Meanwhile, he urged the International Criminal Court to stop threatening to investigate the alleged crimes against humanity carried out in the administration's anti-illegal drugs campaign. He maintained that violence and fear are necessary for law enforcement, particularly in the drug war, and that the ICC has no jurisdiction to probe. The Metro Rail Transit Line 3 announces the end of its free antigen testing as well as free ride by June 30. To date, the MRT3 has given over 23 million free rides to the public since the program began in March. President Rodrigo Duterte has announced giving free rides following the successful completion of the rail system's massive and comprehensive rehabilitation project. He also suggested the public to take the train to cut down on costs amid inflated oil prices. The free antigen test was launched as part of the DOTR's efforts to curb COVID-19 infection in public transportation. More stories from the newsroom. A town in South Cotabato raises alarm after logging high dengue cases. And explore Davao City without leaving the comfort of your own homes through an online show featuring its wonders. Details ahead. Stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, Kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Incoming National Intelligence Coordinating Agency Director General Ricardo De Leon has pointed to Jose Maria Sison, the founder of the Communist Party of the Philippines, as the one who proudly red-tagged front organizations of the CPP-NPA-NDF. De Leon debunked the claim of some groups about the supposed red-tagging activities of the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict. He said the government is not the one who is red-tagging groups because Sison himself named in a video those connected to the communist terrorist groups. The video shows Sison in an international conference in Belgium in 1987 where he identified the Kusang Amayo Uno, Kusang Magbubukid ng Pilipinas, Gabriela Alliance of Concerned Teachers, League of Filipino Students, and Cadena as part of the CPP-NPA's forces in advancing the Philippine Revolution. The Interior Department, meanwhile, defended the decision of the National Security Council and the National Telecommunications Commission to restrict the websites of CPP-NPA-NDF-affiliated fronts. The ILG Undersecretary and NTF-ELCAC spokesperson Jonathan Malaya said restricting these websites to prevent the spread of terrorist propaganda primarily is based on the Anti-Terror Act of 2020. He said that the law states that freedom of speech and expression has limitations, particularly on issues of national security and public order. For his part, incoming Solicitor General Menardo Guevara declined to comment on the decision to block websites of communist terror groups and their affiliates. He said he will reserve his comment until the matter reaches the court. Guevara will be replacing Solicitor General Jose Calida, whose team successfully defended the validity of the Anti-Terror Act before the Supreme Court. The towns of Suralia in South Cotabato has declared a state of calamity amid the continuing increase of dengue cases in the area. Leonardo Balyon, Surala Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office Chief, said they have recorded 50 dengue cases from January until the first week of June. The local government has put in place preventive measures such as fogging and information drives to curb a dengue outbreak in the municipality. The last time a state of calamity was declared in Suralia due to dengue cases was in 2019. In Antique, the provincial government is urging residents to exert more effort in clearing their surroundings to get rid of the common breeding sites of mosquitoes. Common mosquito breeding grounds around households are tires, trash bins, drums, buckets, clogged gutters, and open containers with stagnant water. The province recorded 979 dengue cases as of June 19, which is 355% higher than the 215 cases recorded during the same period in 2021. The number of deaths is placed at 4 this year, while there was only 1 fatality last year. Health workers from Lanao del Sur's Provincial Health Office learned first aid and other life-saving techniques that may be used during emergencies in any settings. More on this from Claire Gighe.
The Lanao del Sur Provincial Health Office, or PHO, in close collaboration with the Philippine Red Cross Iligan City Chapter, spearheaded a basic life support training teaching the PHO personnel on how to handle situations involving on-the-spot patients needing urgent medical response. Lanao del Sur PHO focal person Eileen Ampang shared that the activity was scheduled for 2 days with participants divided into 3 batches. Philippine Red Cross Iligan City Chapter focal person Hanifa Dumato further detailed that they made sure to have relevant theory discussions and lecture demonstrations on the first day, as on the second day, a final evaluation was conducted wherein partakers underwent their graded final demonstration and written examination to assess their skills and knowledge. Additionally, everyone was assumed to have the hospital setting to effectively prepare them on how to apply direct management to patients with emergency cases like those suffering from cardiac arrest, while taking into consideration different levels as there would be various responses for adult, child, and infant.
I hope they will be able to apply it on their workplace, and not only to their workplace but also in their homes, in their respective family.
And sobrang marami po kaming natutunan dito sa workshop na ito. And sana po may apply natin siya talaga. And sana lahat din magkaroon, hindi lang sa PHO, kundi sa lahat ng inside sa Capitol Compound para mas marami po tayong matulungan.
For PNA Newsroom, Claire Gigha of the Philippine Information Agency, Lanao del Sur.
Interested in knowing what's new in Davao City? An upcoming online travel show will take you to the city's newest destination sites without you having to leave your seat. The City Tourism Operations Office said the program titled Laag Davao aims to introduce Davao's old and new landmarks as the city reopens amid the pandemic. For its first episode, host Astrid Tejano Gopo featured the city's various shopping destinations ranked from affordable to luxurious ones. Each episode will tackle the different activities one can do in the city. Laag Davao will be shown online on the social media platforms of the City Government of Davao and the City Tourism Operations Office. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. President Rodrigo Duterte orders all government agencies to support the government's financial inclusion strategy aimed at supporting efforts towards economic development. What do Filipinos expect from President-elect Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos as Agriculture Chief? We'll listen to their thoughts on what must be done to ensure food security amid various risks. Standing firm, the DFA says oil exploration talks between the Philippines and China have been terminated, stressing the Constitution must be upheld in dealing with the matter. And the people and streets of San Juan go wet and wild again as the Wattah Festival is back after a 2-year halt due to the pandemic. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear face masks and face shields. Wash your hands often. Practice safe physical distancing. Go out only for essential reasons. And get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. You may also watch us on PTV4. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I'm Marita Muaje. Stay safe and have a good day.